Hey everybody, welcome back to Harris Family Adventures. We are back with another adventure. It's a local adventure. So we are back in Nebraska. It's January of 2023. We actually have an ice storm happening outside right now. Maybe I'll show you a little bit at the end of this video of what it looks like. But we had a field trip. We are doing homeschooling this year, and so the Harris Academy of Learning Hedgehogs went on a field trip last week to the Nebraska State Capitol Building. Now, this was something that we would visit as a kid a lot, the Nebraska State Capitol Building, and typically students get to go during their third grade year, but during Reese's third grade year, there were no field trips outside of the school building because of the situation that our world was in. And so he had been once, he thought, when he was pretty young with my mom, because she is a big Capitol Building fan. And so I thought, well, let's go to the Capitol Building. So field trip. We went on January 10th of 2023. I will give you a word of warning. Parking is tricky around the Capitol. There's no like parking garage. There's parking underneath the Capitol, but you know, that's for like the fancy people. There's a lot of street parking, but it is kind of tough to come by. Most of it is metered. We were finally able, after we drove around, I think we drove all the way around the Capitol once, and we were able to get some street parking that didn't even have a meter. So that was nice, and we could just stay as long as we wanted. But just a word of warning, like I wouldn't come if you were pressed for time. If you really need it, like give yourself a little bit of time to find a parking spot. Part of that will also depend on if our legislature is in session, and we went purposely when they were in session. Obviously it's going to be easier to find parking when there's not a room full of legislatures with their aides and lobbyists and so forth. So just kind of know that. I'm always interested in parking, so I always want to share that. All right, I had looked online previously because I didn't know like tours, how they happened. I knew in the olden days when I was a kid in the 1900s, as Reese likes to say, that they gave tours. I didn't know if they still did that or if they had like an app with like a self-guided tour like we had done in Boston for the Freedom Trail or at Harvard. Go back and watch those videos. I'll link them down below if you want to see them. But I couldn't find any self-guided tours, which we're kind of actually a fan of the self-guided ones. But they do have free tours almost every day. So Monday through Friday, they have free tours at 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, and 3 o'clock. So it's really easy to get a tour. On the weekends, they have them as well. I think they only have like 4 different times, like 10, 11, 1, and 2. And then obviously on major holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving, they don't have tours open. You don't have to register beforehand. At the time of this filming, you don't have to register beforehand. You don't have to get a ticket. You don't have to do anything. They say just show up inside the north doors at the time that you want to take that tour. So that was a really easy thing to do. We kind of got there early. Right now they are doing a construction project for geothermal heating. So there was a couple of things that were closed. The bathrooms were a little bit trickier to find and that type of thing. And we kind of thought it was just going to be the 2 of us on the tour. So
until the last second.
Yeah, so at like 9:55, the tour guide was like, you guys, I think it's just us, so let's get started. And then she had talked for maybe 2 minutes, and then a couple from Florida joined us. So she started over. So there ended up being 4 of us on the tour. And as we were leaving, we could see another tour happening. I think that one had like a family, so there's a little bit more people, but
and they must have multiple tour guides.
Yep, they do have multiple tour guides. So that's a really interesting thing because each one is going to share a little bit different information. So if you have the chance and you really liked it, you might even want to go on another tour because that tour guide might give you some additional information that the first one didn't. So I'm going to start putting some videos overlaying here. The cool thing about our Capitol building is just all of the artwork. Here is my disclaimer. I have never been inside another state capitol building. I've only been inside the Nebraska State Capitol Building. It is distinctive in its shape. It is distinctive in that way. It was built in the 20s over a span of 10 years. This was actually the 3rd attempt to build a Nebraska State Capitol building. The first 2 attempts used Nebraska limestone, and it's just not that sturdy. So then the 3rd attempt they used Indiana limestone, and here it is 100 years later going strong. But just the artwork is really pretty, and that's you know, that is having been to Italy and seen some really fantastic art. I think it is. It's kind of a dark and gloomy.
Dark.
It is dark. She said, our tour guide said, that all of the lighting fixtures are original. Obviously, like, light bulbs need to be replaced, but it is original. It is pretty dark, especially in some of the hallways where there's not a lot of outside light coming in.
Especially in the hallways when there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's just doors.
There's a lot of doors. There's a lot of offices. Our governor does have an office. He had just been inaugurated like the day before, so there were a lot of people that were going to go see in there. He is a former hog farmer, so there's a wooden hog in his office. That was as far as we got to see. But yeah, everything is pretty old, but I think it's kind of also like retro looking. There were some really cool things that our tour guide shared with us, like the columns are from Venice, they're Venetian and that type of thing. So that was a really cool fact, because anytime now that we have this great love of Italy, anything comes up about Italy, we're here for it. So yeah, I'm hoping you were able to see those different things. There are also some paintings on the wall. Would it be considered murals? Yeah. Murals on the wall,
Yeah.
or mosaics. There are
That's what they're
mosaics
called.
on the wall. Now those are not put in until the 60s, because by the time they finished building the Capitol building, the country was in the Depression, and so they were just like, this is good for now. So then in the 60s, they added these murals on the wall, and there's the 6 main ones, and I have always had a favorite, which is featured the 1880 blizzard, and a school teacher kind of getting her children safely home through the blizzard. But there's a lot of them that have a lot of different symbolisms, and I will say that's where a tour is helpful, because if you're just staring at them, like, you're like, oh, that's cool, but then your tour guide is able to point out a lot more.
And there was a mosaic or something of a basketball player, and she pointed out, like, it's not the oldest thing.
Yep.
Ever.
That's how we kind of, you don't see mosaics of basketball players in Italy. So it's kind of like an old art form, but showing some newer things. So it was really interesting. Because our legislature was meeting at the time, when we got into the main part, which is the rotunda, and she's trying to explain to us about, this is what the floor is meaning, and this is what these doors mean, and that type of thing, it was kind of hard to hear. It was pretty noisy. The legislature was introducing new bills. We have like 700 of them, I just read. So we could hear they were amplifying that out into the rotunda area. Plus there's all the lobbyists out there having conversations. So it was kind of noisy, but it was fun to be there at a time that the Capitol is really working as the Capitol. So if you do not know, Nebraska, we're the only state that does this. We do not have 2 houses in our legislature. We did once upon a time. So there are still some doors that remain. They are 750 pounds each, I think she said.
Sure.
Like pure mahogany from somewhere. Maybe we should go back. And they have lots of symbolism on them, and lots of Native American symbolism and that type of thing. And that was when we did have 2 houses. But for a long time now, we have a unicameral. So we just have a 1 house legislature. That's it. So all of them meet actually across the rotunda in the other house. So we were there on, I think it was their 2nd day of meeting. They only meet for 90 days this year. Next year they'll meet for 120 and then 90. That's how it works. So they don't have a ton of time, and there's always a lot of things that want to get pushed through. So she had told us a couple of things at the end of our tour. She had said, if you want to go up to the observation deck, there is only 1 elevator to get there. I think there normally are 2, but again, because of some of the work that they're doing, one of them was unavailable. So she pointed out that 1 elevator, and then she said, if you want to go in, you can watch the unicameral meet, and here's how to do that. So we headed to the elevator, and we rode up to the 14th floor. The elevator is
Dingy.
very small, and I knew that because that was one of the things that I remembered from being a kid. It is very small. Like, if you have really and truly, if you have any kind of claustrophobia, as much as I love the 14th floor, do not ride in that elevator. It is very small, and a little bit of vibration. Yep, it kind of shakes you up and down. Yeah, and we ended up always being in the elevator with a number of people. Like it,
Which I know that we're all shoved in there, but it does make me feel a little bit better.
oh, well, there you go. So maybe it makes you feel better. If you're claustrophobic, though, it would not be an enjoyable experience. But yes, we made it up to the 14th floor. We were the only ones up there. And what's cool is that the 14th floor has the observation deck. And so we were able to go around almost all 4 sides of our Capitol. I think one of the sides we weren't able to see. But otherwise, you could just go out and you can look around. I'm putting video here for you to see. This is what it looked like on a pretty nice day in January. You probably normally don't want to go up to the observation deck in January, and sometimes they will close the doors to the outside, weather dependent, but they were open on that day and we were the only ones up there, so it was kind of a neat sight to see up there, way up high. Now the sower, not a sower like a sewing machine sower, the sower who is sowing seeds into the ground, and he faces west. We learned that because so much of our state is west of the Capitol. He would be high above us, so you can't see him from the observation deck. The dome is actually on top of that. But then I'll put in some images here. This is from, like, still on that 14th floor. The observation decks are around the outside of it, and this is inside. So this is kind of under that dome that's on the very top of the Capitol building. So that was fun. We were up there by ourselves, and then we came down in the elevator. And I thought this was really cool. So I'll put some pictures of it here. This is like, just kind of shows how retro the Capitol is. I don't know. You can just see, like, this is the original elevator floor dial. I don't know if that's what it's called, but it is so old-fashioned looking, which is really, I think it's neat. I think it speaks to the age of the building, and that we're able to, as much as we're doing construction and remodeling, that type of thing, we can keep some things like that. So then we rode down the elevator, stopping at almost every floor. It got crowded in there, but what was neat is because the members of the unicameral have their offices all over the Capitol building, we were actually in the elevator with one of the state legislatures, and it was one that was from our town, so that was kind of cool. And we rode down back to the second floor. The second floor is like the main floor where the rotunda is, and then we went into the unicameral. So there's a sergeant of arms that our tour guide had said to check in with. I thought we would need to sign our names or something, but she was like, oh no, that's fine, you can go upstairs. And so we went up a floor, so now we're on the 3rd floor. There's another sergeant of arms up there, and you just check in, and he kind of just goes over the rules. Cameras are fine, no flash photography, no food or drink, don't sit in the front row.
And I don't think they were like doing construction or...
Yeah, I don't know why they have the don't sit in the front row rule, but that was an easy rule to follow. And like, don't lean over the...
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
I think that was for safety probably, don't lean over. And that was it. So we sat down, there was lots of seating available, and at first we were talking really quiet. But then you realize that even though they are reading these bills out loud, nobody was really listening. Everybody was just kind of having side conversations. They have tables set up along the side, and you could tell that there were like informal meetings happening at those tables, and people are coming in and out from the rotunda, and yeah.
This is how we ended up talking.
We just talked in our normal voice. One of the things that was cool was that I just then pulled up the unicameral website, and so I was able to see, like, you know, we could read the names of the person from their nameplate, and then we can bring up like, okay, this is their district, here are some bills that they've introduced. You know, one of them graduated high school 5 years after me, and I'm like, oh gosh, he's so young, and he's like making the laws for our state. So yeah, it was cool. We sat there for a bit, and then we headed out. We went back down to the rotunda, back down to the 2nd level, and just sat there to watch the lobbyists. So it is a decent sized rotunda because we don't have it. I think we have 49 members of the unicameral. We're not a very big state. But then just to watch the lobbyists, some of them were handing out bundt cakes, some of them had cups, some of them had gift bags, and just trying to catch, like, we did see our state senator walking in, and someone had, you know, pulled her aside and was talking with her. I don't know what they were trying to convince her of, but it was a really good lesson in just like, because I think it's one of those, you can read about the Capitol, you can read about the unicameral and the legislature and how it works, but then to actually go and see it in action and see lobbyists and that type of thing was pretty interesting. So we stuck around for a bit. They had a bench to sit on, so we just had a seat and stuck around. and then made our way home. They do have a cafeteria. It didn't look like it was very busy. I don't know how many people eat there. Our Capitol building is closer to downtown, so I would assume a lot of people do that. And you just want to check the schedule if you do want to be there when the unicameral is meeting. Just trying to check. I know last week they were only meeting from about 10 to noon. They would vote to adjourn somewhere in there, and then they would reconvene at 10 the next morning. So it's not all day every day. So if you'd like to see that. Now, I have been there when the unicameral isn't meeting, and sometimes I've been able to go inside the actual room where they would sit and get a little bit closer to it also. So yeah, it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Any other final thoughts? No. I will say, to kind of tack onto it, the governor's mansion for Nebraska is right across the street from the state capitol, and we used to combine those in the olden days, in the 1900s when I was a kid. We would, anytime somebody came from out of town, we would go to the capitol and then we'd go to the governor's mansion. So I did check. The governor's mansion now only offers tours on Thursdays, and you have to make a reservation, and you have to make reservations 2 weeks in advance. A lot of rules. State capitol, once an hour you show up, they'll give you a tour. The governor's mansion, not so much. And I don't even think our governor lives there, so I don't know why it's so strict. But if you are coming into town, like that couple that was from Florida, and they are going to all of the capitals, and you would like to combine it with the governor's mansion visit, it sounds like all you need to do is let them know at least 2 weeks in advance that you want to be there on a Thursday, and they could make that happen. All right, we don't have any more adventures planned, but that was one that was just kind of a spur of the moment, like, let's go to the Capitol today. So if you want to see what else we have coming up, this is the very first video. I guess this is an announcement video also, drum roll. We have at least 2 trips to Mexico coming up in the next 6 months. And I know a lot of you like the Valentine videos. There's a Valentine video coming your way. There's also going to Mexico with the 9 of us. With a lot of people and kids. So we'll have 4-year-old to 73-year-old with us. So if you want to see that, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.